morning, and I just want to let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. Let you know that we are here and ready to go. Good morning. We are ready to go, and I've been trying to get the lighting set in my office, so things look a little weird. Gotta put this one back on. Things are a little bit strange. Send me a message or put something in the Facebook group. Anyway, welcome. We are ready to get started to talk about how to get customers to love us, and I'm excited to share some information with you. And as usual, we are going to start off with what we're going to be doing today. And of course, one of the first things is doing our kinesiology. Let me get back to put myself back on the screen there. And so our agenda is our kinesiology, a little bit of checking in and where are we in this whole range of things, and then get started with today's topic. We've got a lot to cover. Here's what we've got set up for today. So you can see there's a lot of information. And let's get back to doing our kinesiology. So as you're able, please stand, and we are going to get our brain activated and connected. And yeah, I know you can't quite see everything. Let's move this a little bit. As you're able, stand. If you're not, you can do this from the chair. And what we're trying to do is get both hemispheres of our brains connected. So first thing is alternate elbow to alternate knee. So right elbow, left knee, and vice versa. You got the drill. And we're going to do about 10 of those. And as I said, if it's difficult to get your knee up, just use your hand and tap. And if you need to do it from your chair, you can do that too. Just make sure you're doing taps. Sorry, that was my drawer. Doing taps to the alternate body part from elbow to knee. All right, this one. Put your hands together. We're going to do a figure 8. I think you can see good enough to tell what I'm doing there. All righty. And then next, put the backs of your hands together like this and lock your fingers. And then I always say it's sort of like a pushing out motion, because you're going to bring your hands out and then back in. Do one more. Well, actually 2 more. Okay. Kind of push out, bring back in. And this one. Last time. Excellent. And if you have your cell phones around, you might want to silence them. And I will readjust my camera. And here we are. And again, if you prefer, when you're working at your office, your desk, and you think, oh, I need to get my brain connected, because actually this does work, you can also take a pen in your less dominant hand and do a figure 8 on the piece of paper. I usually like the one that I just showed you, the 3, because it's physical, and we know anytime that we stand up and we get moving, our brain engages. And the beauty of applied kinesiology is that it connects both hemispheres of your brain. And I don't frankly know any other technology that does that. Again, welcome to our time together today. And just to remind you, what we're talking about is getting customers to love you. And there will be some repetition. And you might remember the phrase, repetition is the mother of all learning, or in order to master learning, we need to repeat things. And being one of those people that wants to know all about things like this, I said, where did that come from? Actually, it came from Athens, Greece, many, many millennia ago, and the Romans adopted that phrase. Now you know the origin of that one, if you need to know. Last time we got together, we talked about the millionaire mindset and how millionaires think. And I just encourage you to review that. Hopefully you did. And if you made note of any new ideas, that would be awesome. Is there anything that you decided you wanted to work on? And there are 2 documents in the file section that you could use if you wanted to have a worksheet to do that. And hopefully you had time to go check that out. And of course, I always have my remind you to use the tools. Here we go. You can use the journal. You can use index cards. I was writing in my journal and I had a pen and it as a marker, and that just went kaplooey. You can use any size index card, and I encourage you to have some of these tools available. I think you'll find that they are useful. And today's topic then, I already mentioned that, and I wanted to just get back into our process. So we have three main things that we are covering in our 12 weeks together. And the first pillar you see is get ready. And we have talked about two of those, and we talked about hidden motivators like success and failure in business and what was behind all of that. We talked about the millionaire mindset, or how a millionaire thinks, last time. And we're going to talk about getting your customers to love you. And we're going to do that this session and next session. The middle section here of topics is what I call get on target, and then revenue streams that make sense and make money. And we're going to talk about upselling and cross-selling magic. The third pillar is a little bit of pulling things together and also some additional content. So we're going to talk about do a little to get a lot. We're going to talk about mastering the money, and we're going to talk about your A-team, making sure you have an A-team. And that's kind of the process, and we're in that first pillar and moving along. And we're going to talk today, as I said, about getting customers to love you. And there's all kinds of reasons for this. And I think we probably all know why we want to do this. And when we get customers to love us and get them loyal toward our business, we delve into the importance today of that. And we're going to talk about strong relationships, providing exceptional value, and creating remarkable experiences for our customers. And when we do that, they love us and they become loyal. And probably not every client or customer is going to love us. That's okay. We just want to do all the activities that we can and have that in our strategy to get as many clients and customers to love us as we can. And that makes them more loyal, which basically gives us three things. It enhances our the customer satisfaction ratings with our clients, or their level of customer sat. It increases repeat business, and ultimately it's going to drive long-term success for our business. So we all intuitively know this, and probably cognitively we've heard this, we know this. And we're going to really work on some ideas here today. And as I said, you're going to hear some things a couple different times. They come up in different areas. And I know that, and you will recognize, yes, we've already heard this. And again, part of it is repetition. We're going to get those ideas and we're going to try to make them more solid. One of the things you might say is, well, when am I going to focus on this? What are some reasons to do this? And again, I think we probably know most reasons of why we would do this. We're going to kind of walk through these. The first is to build customer loyalty, and developing strategies to enhance customer loyalty and reduce churn is crucial for the long-term success in any small business. And we definitely want to reduce churn and not have people coming in and leaving out the back door. Understanding how to cultivate customer love will enable any business owner or leader to create strong, enduring relationships with customers. Obviously, that's a good reason or a good time to do this. Another time that you want to do this is when you need to differentiate in a competitive marketplace. And in a saturated marketplace, most of us are in that, or I said last time that you're either in a competitive and saturated marketplace, or you're in one where people don't understand you or what you do and your value. So there's a couple of issues very similar, just come from a different place. Anyway, differentiation in the competitive marketplace is essential, and knowing how to connect with customers on an emotional level and make remarkable experiences can help a small business differentiate themselves and attract new clients and retain existing ones. So we all want to have differentiation, we want to attract new clients, and we want to retain, right? Third point is improving customer satisfaction. And there's lots of talk over the years on customer sat. Became really a big deal, probably even 20 years ago. And this is nothing new. And customer satisfaction directly impacts business growth in any business. And by gaining insights into customer love strategies, a small business leader can improve customer sat levels. And that again leads to increased referrals, positive reviews, and a stronger company or brand reputation. Fourth point is driving repeat business. And repeat business is a key driver for revenue in a small business, frankly, in any size business. And with customers loving your business, they are more likely to become a loyal advocate and repeat buyer. And we'll talk about advocacy down the road a bit. Knowing how to nurture customer relationships and provide exceptional value will encourage customers to keep coming back. And that's what we want. We want them coming back. Fifth point is adapting to changing customer expectations. And we know customer expectations continue to evolve, continue to change. A lot of times we solve a customer problem only to find a new one. And we want to be able to evolve and adapt. And in particular, I find a lot of times in a B2B company, we're more able to adapt than in a consumer product company. Consumer products, basically, you sell Doritos. All right, how many things can you do? Well, you can have multiple flavors as they do now. And yet they're not going to make a flavor for Lori specifically. They're not going to make a flavor for Bob specifically. However, when you're in a B2B situation, you can often make a customized solution for a specific customer. And there are plenty of you listening that your whole business is doing custom work per client. So you know what I'm talking about there. Anyway, learning how to use customer love strategies, learning some ideas there. These are all going to be tools to help you understand and meet the changing needs of your target audience. So let's just mention a business owner here, Alex. He is a small business owner, and he had been struggling to generate consistent sales for his consulting business. And despite his expertise and dedication, his business was barely surviving. He felt overwhelmed and frustrated as he watched competitors thriving and receiving glowing reviews from their clients. You know, you might have seen some of this and you go, what's wrong with my business? What am I doing wrong? So doubts crept into his mind, and he constantly questioned his abilities and decision to start the business. And we start going down that road, it gets to be a little bit scary. He couldn't understand why his customers didn't seem to love his service as much as they loved the competitors' services. We're going to come back to Alex in a bit, just to set the stage of a mindset that a business owner can have. And if you're a solopreneur or in a fairly small business, a lot of it is how we talk to ourselves and what we need to say to keep ourselves going. There are 5 reasons to solve this problem. And again, some of this is going to be what we have heard. Keep that in mind. First is survival in a competitive landscape. And in today's fiercely competitive marketplace, customer love is essential for business survival. And I really don't think there's hardly anybody that's not in this, unless, like I said, you're one of those that is in a marketplace where people don't understand what you do, which could be things like artificial intelligence or other things that are a little bit more on the forefront. Anyway, without a strong base of loyal customers who love our businesses, we are at the risk of becoming overshadowed by competitors and losing market share. And even if we don't calculate market share, we know that maybe there's 5 companies we want to do business with. Well, if we're not getting those 5, somebody else is. And certainly we have access to more than 5 customers. I'm just throwing that out as an example. And long-term business growth. That can be an area where, again, we look at this and we go, what am I doing to grow my business this year? How about 3 years? How about 5 years? How about 10? And if you worked on your vision, we want to be long-term focused as well. And we still have to have the tactics in the short term. And when you get customers to love you, they're going to become loyal advocates. They're going to provide positive referrals. Obviously, we love warm introductions. They're going to give you testimonials and reviews, and word of mouth marketing or promotion is invaluable for small business. And this will help attract new clients and expand our customer base. Another problem is addressing lifetime customer value, and you might see this referred to as CLTV or CLV. And again, this became a popular topic, gosh, again, probably 20 years ago. And then it crops up now and then. Sometimes, I don't know, some of these terms become confusing and some of them get popular and some of them get less popular. Anyway, what you want to do is have customer love, because that leads to higher customer lifetime value. And I was going to do a little quick math, and I thought, all right, if we did this in a mastermind group, I'm going to just share it with you. You want to look at what amount of investment or money are your clients spending with you over their lifetime. And you want a client that's going to be there for more than one engagement. So let's just say that there are 52 weeks in the year. And let's say I go to my hair person every 5 weeks. That means I see her a little bit more than 10 times a year. Let's just say I spend $150 each time. Well, that's $1,500 a year. Yeah, I know sometimes we don't sit down and calculate that, or we might be making some other choices, just like when we keep paying our cell phone bill and don't realize that it adds up when you figure out the annual situation. And why do you think cell phone companies like to keep us around? Because they have figured out the lifetime value. Anyway, let's say I'm spending $1,500. You can do this with a dentist. You can do it if you're a male and you have a haircut. I don't know what haircuts cost. Depends where you go. If you're a guy, could be $15, $20, could be 50. I don't know. It could be $100, I suppose. Anyway, so let's say that I go and I spend $1,500 a year. Well, am I going to go to my hairstylist for more than a year? Well, probably. Let's say that I'm going to go for 10 years. Well, that means that I'm worth $15,000 to my salon or the stylist that I work with. Well, when you start breaking down the pieces and putting the money together, it looks like a whole different ballgame. And it's a really good exercise. And a lot of you that are in our group, you might have a client where you've got a $5,000 engagement or project. All right. Well, is it going to be one? Can you do more? Can you build? Let's say that you have a product that you're selling and you've customized it. Well, your product might be a $5 million product. Well, how many times can you solve a problem for that particular client, and how many years? And I think when we look at lifetime value, it changes how we think about things. It changes our perspective. All right, another time when you would want to do this, or a problem to solve, is when you have a brand reputation issue. And getting customers to love you, increasing the loyalty, is going to give you a positive brand or company reputation. And again, I don't think too many of us would argue with that. And we all want to be around a while, so we need to have a positive reputation. And when a small business is well loved by the customers, again, here's some of the things you get. You get more credibility, there's a higher trust level, and you probably have influence within your industry. You might be called on as an expert, a speaker, depending again on the nature of your business. The reputation, a strong reputation, is going to attract high quality clients, partnership opportunities, and strengths in your overall market position. The last one is emotional connection and loyalty. Again, this will solve the lack of that. And customers who love a business develop an emotional connection and a sense of loyalty. You'll have that even in the B2B space. I was talking with my husband, the engineer from 3M, and he was talking about when they got out of the Scotch card business, they had customers calling them, they were angry, they were yelling at them and all that. And, a huge manufacturing company such as 3M has other issues with EPA and all kinds of stuff. And so we were talking, he said, well, what did they have to do? He said, the customers had to completely redo their process. That was huge, and a huge cost. Well, the customers had loved them all this while, and now they had an issue because based on other reasons, they had to get out of that business. And then they had to really work on, what are we going to do? Is there something else we can give these customers to solve their problem? And we don't know. I mean, things could come in from regulations or other places that are going to affect our business. And anything that we have that creates that last day, or that long-term relationship, that emotional connection, we can really do a better job keeping that relationship, because people don't dump us as easy if we've got a connection with them. I wanted to share with you just an idea, and you can sit back, close your eyes, or not close them, however you want to take this. But let's just think about an experience. And I don't have a slide for that. Let's say that you're having a company open house. And you might be a one-person company, you might be small, whatever. You can still have an open house. You can have it at a restaurant. You can have it, whatever. I don't need to talk about the places. Let's just say there's two scenarios. The first scenario is this company is having an open house. And people come, and they come for the food. They come, they think, well, maybe there'll be some good networking. And they come, yeah, I get some free drinks. Yeah, I'm available that night. And their customers, and maybe some people that the company has in their network, and they all show up, and you look around the room and you go, boy, people aren't that engaged. People seem to just not be that enthusiastic. Why are they here? What's going on? Well, they probably showed up for reasons other than because they really love the business. Now let's think about another scenario. Open house, got a place for it. You got people coming, same thing, food, beverages, some networking, all that stuff. You might even have some door prizes, whatever. And you could have had that in the first one too. And maybe that's why people came, because they said, oh, maybe I'll win some. Well, let's look at the second scenario. This is where the customers have a relationship and they love the host, your company, or whoever's doing this event. They come in and they're engaged, and they're talking to people, and they're enthusiastic. And they might even say something like, have you done business with this company? Aren't they amazing? Isn't so-and-so fabulous, brilliant? How have they solved your problems? Well, yeah, they've been great. The whole tone changes when you have that emotional connection, build that relationship with customers. It's going to be a great event, and people are going to leave in a way that it was a positive experience. Now, there's obviously things you can do to make events more interactive and, a more positive thing. I'm just saying in general, if you looked at one where there wasn't a relationship and people didn't have that great satisfaction and they came, they just wouldn't, you would see it in their body language. You would see it in their faces. They just wouldn't be that engaged. And I know because we did an event last year for our Meaningful Capitalism Award, and you cannot believe how many people said, this is so great. We need more of this. People need to be recognized for what they're doing in business. And you just need to have that connection. Moving on, let's talk about some stats and facts. And there is a ton of information out. I just picked 3 of the ones that I really, really like here. One of those is to look at what increasing customer retention can do for your business. And this is research that comes out of Bain, and this is pretty phenomenal. If you can increase your customer retention by 5%, and most of us would probably go 5%. Well, heck yeah, that's a slam dunk. If you can increase your customer retention by 5%, this can lead to a profit increase of anywhere from 25 to 95%. And you might go, that's a big range. I want the 95. Well, then you better be pretty good at it. And even if you get a 25% increase in profit, that would be awesome. And all the way up to 95, pretty phenomenal. A third fact from the research by Salesforce, the CRM company, they found that 75% of customers are likely to spend more money with a business that gives them a positive customer experience. 75% are going to spend more. That's huge. And then the last point that I have here is from Accenture, and they basically say that 92% of business-to-business customers are more likely to make repeat purchases if they have a positive customer experience. And you go, okay, well, how hard is this? Sometimes we get so busy, we don't get things done. And I thought it would be helpful to just clarify some things, because we might say, well, what do you mean by customer love? Well, how's that different from customer service? Well, how's that different? What's customer experience? All these things, we have terms for everything under the sun these days. Here's the definition for, or the explanation of customer love. And it refers to the process, as you can see, of building strong relationships, providing exceptional value, and creating remarkable experiences. And again, we know that that fosters customer loyalty and satisfaction, all those things. I would like to just stop for a minute here and hopefully, where's my little index cards? Take an index card or somewhere in your notes right now and think about it for a minute. What do you do now that does any of this, that builds a strong relationship, creates exceptional value, or creates a remarkable experience? Is there anything that comes to mind? Because I think that most of us do some of this, so let's acknowledge it. What is it that, just take a couple minutes, well, not a couple minutes, we're just going to take 30 seconds or so and write that in your notes, on your index card or whatever, and go, okay, what am I good at on these elements? All right. Let's take a look at the next definition of customer service. And again, sometimes we get these things conflated. Customer service really is more of a customer or client contacting us, and building the customer love is more what we're doing. So it's more of an outward, and customer service is more of an inward. And again, I think we all know what this is because we've probably used customer service in other companies ourselves. Anyway, this refers to the assistance and support provided to customers when they have a question, a problem, request, or something relating to the product or service that they're getting from us. And it usually will focus on a specific issue that, again, needs to be resolved. So, as it says in the very last line there, last sentence, it is usually reactive, and it usually comes into play when the customer initiates some contact. And it's great to make sure you have a vehicle where people can do that. And if you have a website or a Facebook page or something else, you can utilize that. And if you're using artificial intelligence, you can get your responses automated until you or the other person that might be working on customer service has time to get in touch. Then customer experience, on the other hand, this is the entire journey of the customer interactions with a company, and customer journey, customer experience has been more popular in the last few years as far as terms. And well, I think a lot of times we come up with terms because we're trying to dissect things and get smaller pieces. Anyway, just think about customer experience as everything that the customer knows or has contact with you. A lot of this starts before they have contact, oftentimes, where they might be, let's just say somebody's meeting a business friend for lunch, and they say, boy, our leads are not working right. And I'm talking med device leads, not sales leads. Our leads, we've got a lot of defect coming in from ABC company. The person that is having lunch says, oh, well, I've worked with Metamicus and they're phenomenal. And you go, oh, okay. Then you, if you're in the conversation, you start doing a little research. You go, well, who is Metamicus? Where are they? Look them up online. You're checking this, you're checking that. You're going, well, who else do I know that knows them? Let me look at LinkedIn. Do I have any connections? What's going on? Most of the time, there's something going on with the potential customer before there's even contact with our company. through some digital source, or like I said, a referral, or somebody mentions them. Then in the customer experience, it's all those little interactions, all those contact pieces. And a lot of that now is thrown out because of digital media, all the contact that you can have. And it used to be, I think it was something like 7 contacts that you needed to have 7 contacts with a person before they did business with you. I've heard people say now it's like as many as 21. The whole game has really changed because there's so much information and people are being hit with all of that. That's just a quick definition of customer love, customer service, and customer experience. So as we're talking to them, just remember that they are different elements. Now, we're going to get back to our customer love topic. And there are 2 main misconceptions. And the one is that business owners, executives, leaders often think that competitive prices alone are going to win customer love. And most people, if you get into a discussion, they'll say it's never about price. There's always something else, and price is a good one to bring up and a good excuse. And somebody might have some reason for not doing business with company A, and they might bring up price, and that might be the end of the discussion. If you're going to be competitive on price, and there's different philosophies on this. I prefer to follow Michael Porter if you want to do any research on Michael Porter and how he talks about pricing. His theory is that if you do market pricing, the kind of prices everybody, that's the least profitable. And if you want to compete on price and price alone, that generally puts you into a commodity business and is the fast road to the bottom. As you can tell, I'm not real keen on making that a main issue in any business. The other thing is, the reason I gave you those definitions is that a lot of times people think that getting your customers to love you, getting them loyal, well, isn't that the same as customer satisfaction? If they give us good ratings, if they do this, if they do that, if we're on time delivery, all of that kind of stuff, isn't that the same thing? And it really isn't, because customer love and loyalty takes it to another level. And sometimes when you're measuring customer sat, you don't measure all these elements that need to be discussed. All right. Another little exercise for us is, this is where you could sit back, relax, close your eyes, or just look at the screen and you can see the forest. And the forest is an analogy that represents a competitive business landscape. As you can see, the forest, it's filled with lots of trees, which you might think are obstacles and challenges. Getting through this, there's a narrow path that you can follow. And yet, as a small business owner, we get into this forest of business and we want to reach that hidden treasure. We want to get to that golden treasure at the end of the path, right? We want to do a good job and we want to be rewarded for it. And that hidden treasure is the love and loyalty of our customers. Well, we get started down this path and soon we realize that the path might be a little treacherous, filled with uncertainty, obscured by the dense foliage in the forest. As we progress, we look and we go, wow, now I've got customers who are skeptical. I haven't differentiated. I'm not getting those meaningful conversations. Getting through this situation, walking through the forest, this will test our resilience. And with each setback, it intensifies our frustration and self-doubt. And we start questioning our abilities and wondering if we're ever going to find that treasure. Are we ever going to get to the golden pot? However, as we are walking along, I'm going to show you something I did in artificial intelligence, since I love doing that. A guide joins us. And in this case, it's the woman on the right. So we have a guide, a mentor, or a resource that shares strategies and insights on how to navigate the forest successfully, how to get through this competitive situation. Now, armed with new knowledge, we are going to go along that path and leverage new tools and learn the importance. Well, we already know it's important to build authentic connections with customers. With each step forward on this journey, we overcome the challenges, clearing the path ahead. Our guide is helping us, giving us information, And the forest transforms, as you can see in this picture, it has transformed into a place that is brimming with opportunities. You can see little dollars, little cases, little treasure chests along the way, and we're finding the treasure, the love and loyalty of our customers. In the end, our business owner or our team will emerge from the forest victorious and transformed. The struggles they face and the lessons they learn have shaped them into a savvy, customer-centric business owner, and they are ready to thrive in the competitive marketplace. Think of this forest story as an analogy about the journey that many B2B small business leaders and owners experience in their quest to gain customer love, while also we grow and transform our business. And it takes perseverance and strategic implementation of our customer-centric practices. And hopefully in our plan, we have put down what those practices or strategies are going to be. And you know, I love artificial intelligence, or maybe you don't. Here was another image that I did from another source. And I encourage you, if you don't know much about AI, to learn more, because it's fascinating what you can do. All right, enough on that. There are 3 steps I want to go through with you as far as steps to take to put this all together. And again, there will be some things that you've already heard. So let's talk about the first thing, and that is understanding your customers. We need to understand our customers or clients and their needs. And we need to conduct market research. We need to engage in customer interviews, and we need to analyze data, all of that to gain insights into the customer's pain points, their preferences and desires. And another term that's been used a lot, 2 of them, personas and avatars, when it comes to customers. The idea there is to really create a clear picture of your target audience or your target market. And you can talk about personas, avatars, whatever makes sense to you. It really is about being really clear on who it is that you do business with, whose problems you solve, and how you find them. Second point here is building authentic connections. And you want to focus on building authentic connections with your customers, and frankly, those that you want to be your customers, those in your target market. And you want to personalize your interactions and communicate transparently and show genuine care for their success. And authentic connections, that comes through personalized messaging, engaging in active listening, and responding promptly to their questions and concerns. Obviously, this fosters a relationship or a sense of trust, empathy, and shared values. And those are all things that most businesses are trying to achieve. And if you haven't read on some of the values and the why, you can certainly check out Simon Sinek's book, because he's all into that. And those that we want to do business with, when we build those authentic connections, people want to do business with people they like, know, and trust. And a lot of times shared values is one of the things as well that people want to know. More and more people are asking about our values, our business values, and so on. The fourth point is delivering exceptional value and experiences. You want to ensure that your product or services will solve customer problems effectively and exceed their expectations. I'm a Drucker fan, you probably know that. And so he talks about efficiency and effectiveness. We need to solve our customers' problems both efficiently and effectively. And we need to know and understand those problems really, really well in order to do that and exceed their expectations. We need to continuously innovate and improve our offerings to stay ahead of the competition, frankly, and to keep meeting the expectations, because customer expectations, needs, problems, all of that, it changes. There might be some things that are universal and come up a lot, and yet there are things that evolve because the whole marketplace is evolving for not only us, for our customers as well. So everything that we might be experiencing, we need to keep in mind they're experiencing it too. And you want to aim to create remarkable moments that leave a lasting impression and turn your customers into loyal advocates for your business. Okay, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about customer relationships. And again, this is somewhat of a review. We've talked about a lot of this already. And again, because we are in those extremely competitive environments, building that long-term relationship is going to create customer loyalty. And when customers feel valued, understood, appreciated, they're more likely to remain loyal and do business with us and continue doing more business and repeat business. Where's sorry, I just had a glitch in my information here. And again, we talked about having a higher customer lifetime value. Again, when we've got all those pieces in place, we are going to have a greater lifetime value and competitive advantage. Again, another term that we talk about a lot. And your competitive advantage probably includes things like your differentiation, what you do better than anybody else out there, and making sure that people understand that. The other thing I wanted to talk about, sorry, I just about lost my timer, is the transactional approach versus relationship-based approach. And a transactional approach is, I think, a term, again, that most of us understand. And a transactional approach is where we have a one-time deal, a one-time sale. And there may be times where we really got to hit the road and hit it hard, and we need to do some things to get revenue in. And you might have a one-time sale. Hopefully you're in a business where you can create additional sales with your target market and your customers. And if you can't, start thinking of things that you can do, because if you have a one-time sale, let's say you've got a product or a service that solves a problem. You're in there, you're over, you're out, you're done. Well, what else could you do? Even in a service business, there's usually additional help that particular customer is going to need. So you want to start thinking about, okay, I sold them this. What else do they need? There are companies, I think I was mentioning Ecolab last week, where they actually know more of what's going on in their customers' businesses than the customers do a lot of times, in the area of things that Ecolab does, which is all about cleaning. Well, a lot of what they do is all about cleaning products and sanitation and all that kind of stuff. They monitor and they track the chemical use. I guess we call them chemicals. I don't know if they call them chemicals because that's become a dirty word. Anyway, they track the use of the products, and they know more about the inventory the client has on the Ecolab products than the client does. So they've been able to take the whole thing and make it more of a system. And they have multiple products that the company then can use, from hand sanitizer to cleaning products to you name it. Maybe there's some aerosol things, I don't know. They have just come up with a whole package. So instead of just saying, okay, you need to buy a tank of such and such, they now have a whole system in place. So think as much as you can of a system and what are other pieces that, again, we'll talk about this in creating different revenue sources. We want to think about what other problems can we solve. We don't want to just sell them more and shove stuff on them or have them feel that we're just shoving stuff down on them. We want to be solving a problem. And then the relationship-based approach is, again, where we have that long-term relationship and where we have repeat business. And we want to do things where maybe we have a 6-month relationship, maybe we have a 12-month, maybe we have a certain system that we have in place that goes on indefinitely. Well, when we can do relationship business, our revenue stream gets more evened out, all that stuff. It's way more predictable. And we'll talk about that in additional revenue sources when we get to that. And again, what are the benefits of doing all this? Things we've talked about pretty much. Enhanced customer retention. You're going to retain customers more when you've got that relationship built. You're going to get better, more referrals, and you're going to have the positive word of mouth. And there, again, is research out on that of how much business is generated from positive word of mouth. Something like a positive experience, people will tell 7 to 10 people, or maybe it's 3 to 5, but a bad one, they will tell 7 to 10. Anyway, a bad experience, people usually tell more people than they do of a positive one. And positive word of mouth, especially for a small business, can be the best investment of your time, because a lot of times a smaller business doesn't have money to do advertising and you don't know where to advertise, and that gets cost prohibitive. You might do some online things, you might do some traditional stuff. And most of the time, word of mouth is way, way, way more cost effective. Anyway, you might also then collaborate on some growth opportunities. As you've built these relationships, maybe a client that you work with says, hey, let's team up on something because you do this and we do X. Well, we can work together. Well, there might be that. There might be some other partnership situations. There might be another company that has parallel type of services that you can get into a new market. There's just all kinds of opportunities. Valuable customer feedback and insights. Obviously, you want to keep that dialogue going and be talking to your customers all the time and documenting their insights and their comments and figure out a way to do that. I tend to be not the best at this because I take lots of notes and then I have to organize my notes. So use a system that works for you. And again, I mean, maybe you even have, like I'm big on the notebook. I don't know if you can see this now when I got this sharing up, but if you have a notebook, maybe you just have one on new product ideas or new service ideas or customers' suggestions. Keep it organized as much as you can. And again, in a small business, it's sort of like we have things going all over the place and it gets hard to do that sometimes. Adaptability and flexibility is another benefit. And because things are changing, when we've got those strong relationships with customers, again, as we have said, it creates a sense of trust and understanding. And there also, if we have something where we need to change, we need to pivot, we're hearing from them. So we know what we need to do differently. And that's the most, I'm all over this. That is so huge. And we might need to pivot because of something on our end. Well, when we've got the flexibility, we're more adaptable. And your brand advocacy, man, if you can get people that are basically out there saying, hey, you got to work with company A, they are so awesome. That is phenomenal. It goes back to the positive word of mouth. And if we can build brand advocates, that is fabulous and a great strategy. And maybe you have that as a specific strategy. If you can build a brand advocate, it starts with you. I did a video a while ago because this was one of the things that was a key point in one of the programs I was in from the University of London, is they said you have to start as a brand advocate in any company. It has to start at the top. And this is maybe more of a challenge for bigger businesses because of all the layers and everybody having these different jobs to do. And yet we know in a small business, we have to be our own advocate. And sometimes we're, I don't know, maybe a little too shy. All right. Second point is to understand your customers. And this is, again, you might guess, an area that I really, really think is key because that's where I spend a lot of my time. So first thing is you want to identify the pain points of your customer. These change. So you want to really actually stay up in this and make this almost a continual process. And research is the way you do this. And we're going to talk about that in a bit too. And determine the customer expectations. So research, talk to them, document it, keep notes, have a way to get this organized and find out what their expectations are and how they're moving. In fact, or how they're changing. In fact, you might have this as part of your onboarding where you have now a client and you want to just talk about what are your expectations? What in 6 months will it look like if we did everything that you wanted accomplished? What will it look like in a year? Those kinds of things. So make sure that you're clear on that. And if those expectations change, we need to make some adjustments and identify the market opportunities. Again, by doing really good job on your research, you're going to identify some untapped opportunities. And you're going to help customers that maybe they haven't quite figured out some of the new trends that are affecting their business through this discussion. You can help them with that. You can look at customer segments and niche markets, all those things. There's different ways to do it. Surveys. And you can do paper surveys. SurveyMonkey is pretty helpful. You can do qualitative and quantitative. And the qualitative is more where you ask open-ended questions. The quantitative is using multiple choice, forced choice answers, rankings, and that kind of thing. And you want to capture their preferences, satisfaction levels, and get feedback on specific products and services that you're offering. And yeah, well, that would, we could get into a whole discussion on that. We won't probably go down that path. And interviews. this is the methodology we almost always use in our B2B space. It really depends what our objective is. However, most of the time, this is where we get the gold nuggets. And in particular, we do interviews with open-ended questions. And we've got specific things that we're always looking to learn for our clients that are going to affect their bottom line and going to affect their plan. I'm a big proponent of this. However, I want to mention here methodologies. If you do paper surveys, SurveyMonkey, whatever you're using, there's probably less bias than when you do an interview. And we've got extensive training that my interviewers go through, because if you do a phone interview, for example, and you do it yourself, you are already introducing bias. And what would be a great idea for a small business is if you had another business friend and you said, hey, let me do your interviews, you do mine. Because when I train my interviewers, after each question, the only answer there's like two answers that they can give. They can say next, or let's move on, or okay. They are not ever allowed to say anything that's like, oh, cool, or oh, interesting, or, because whatever the person's saying might be cool and might be interesting. However, that now leads them down the path of wanting to make you happy if you're the interviewer. So just be aware of that. And if you do paper surveys, you have to be careful about how you introduce things. And anyway, this isn't a survey or a research lecture. However, there's a lot of things that need to be considered. And that's why I pretty much say, get a professional to do it. Focus groups and roundtables, these can be really, really helpful where you get the discussion going. And the reason to do focus groups and roundtables is you want people together and you want them to play off each other. Otherwise, they're not that productive. Observation can be really great. I did this a lot for Kinko's, who now is owned by FedEx, but we did research where I would go in and we would count how many people came in which door, and we would observe what they were doing, and did they have confusion? Were they using all the free stuff that Kinko's had as far as the staplers and the highlighters and paper clips, all that kind of stuff that they came up with. And most of that was frankly a brainchild of one person at Kinko's. Another thing to do is social listening. And that is, and we all are busy, right? And finding, if you say, okay, 30 minutes once a week, I'm going to get to Facebook and see what people are saying about what I'm doing. And I would do this in a time where maybe it's not your most productive time of day. You'll have to decide, but time block it and figure out, when are you going to do it? LinkedIn posts or LinkedIn comments. When do you do that? Well, there's something on LinkedIn with the algorithms that you want to try to respond fairly timely, just because the algorithms like you better. But figure out a way to do that. Then you want to analyze your data. And one thing is called data segmentation. And that's where you kind of group your data based on similar content. And this would be things like demographics. If you said, all right, well, I want to find out of my clients that are Fortune 50, how many said certain things. Well, if you say, all right, these are my clients in the middle market, what kind of comments do they make? So you can do it by size of the company that you're working with, or some other kind of segmentation variable, different preferences, different behaviors, different issues. Maybe they're a labor company. Maybe they don't have anybody that's in a labor union. Sorry, I didn't mean labor, but a union company. So figure out how you want to look at your data. And then data analytics obviously gets a little more involved with things, but you can even use a spreadsheet. Just keep in mind, how do you analyze this? And then customer journey mapping. I think most of us know about customer journey mapping, and I can't remember. I think we talk about that for sure. We do in the paid group. Just to highlight this again. So segmentation are a whole bunch of descriptive variables. So you'd say companies in this industry, this size, this region, anything that is descriptive, and segmentation variables, that's what that is. And then once you get this all figured out and you say, all right, there can be companies in this region, they can be this size, they can be this industry, I've got a background in med device, so maybe I want to really focus on med device or whatever, right? And you put all these pieces, it's like making a recipe. You have all kinds of ingredients, and your target market is like the recipe. Now you've said, I want to focus on companies in this industry of this size in this region. Da, 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 da. So the segmentation is all the little pieces out there that you could think of. And then your target is refining it. And like I said the other day, I said, I want 5 clients just like so-and-so. And they said, well, is that, because I used a name, and they said, is that a real person or is that a persona? I said, it's actually a real person who would be my persona. And that's what the difference is between those two. So segmentation are all the little pieces and all the things that you could use to describe your market. And then the target market is where you say, all right, I want people, companies that have these specific traits, because the more you do that, the more effective you're going to be. Now, we've got just a couple of minutes. I wanted to go back and share a couple of things with you. So if you're going to do some customer research, which I think is essential, I'm going to go back to this slide. It's not as busy looking. Think here. I'm going to give you some questions and some process on how to do your customer research before we say goodbye. Think about 5 to 10 existing clients or customers that you have that have been loyal to your business and are willing to participate in an interview or a survey. I've got somebody now that said, hey, can you help me with this? So-and-so said that you'd be really good at this. Well, she's got too many questions and I don't know what her objective is, and I don't know why anybody would do the survey. So we have to have methodology here. And if you do any kind of research, I always suggest that one reason to get people to participate is you give them some intro. You know, we've done business. I appreciate the relationship, blah, blah, blah. You say all those things. And then you will say, I'm doing this because I want to improve. I want to get better. I want to whatever, you know, give them the reason. And then tell them, I will share the highlights with you. And that usually gets people to participate. And what I just want to mention too is that you don't give them everything. You give them the things you want to give them. Because if you found some issues where people say, you know, you're just not keeping up on X, Y, and Z, well, you're not going to broadcast that. You're going to talk about other things that you learned, because there will be things that you will learn, which is really the important part of doing the whole thing. So here's some possible questions. And this would be where you're engaging in a conversation. So one question, and these are open-ended, is what challenges do you face in your business that our product or service helps solve? And again, it's up to you to make the translation and know all that. However, they probably would go, oh, well, this and this. So the first question, what challenges do you face in your business that our product or service helps you solve? Second question, what factors influenced your decision to choose our business over the competition? So it's basically that question of, how come you picked us? And then you just listen. And the other thing that's really important is to prompt a little bit. So if they said something, there's something I learned from one of my sales trainers, and we call it fat words. And if they said, oh, well, we picked you because, you know, you've got some good technology. Well, that's a fat word. And so you go, oh, okay, can you tell me more about what that means to you? Explain it. And so this really calls on some good interviewing skills. The last question to ask is, what improvements or additional features would you like to see in our offerings? And offerings has become a term now too. You might say product, you might say service, you might say offering, whatever. Use whatever word is common. The thing also is, write down as much as you can. Now we've got recording devices, and frankly, the law in Minnesota says that as long as one person knows that you're recording a conversation, you're covered by the law. You may want to not go down that road. I don't know. However, if you are doing these, I would suggest, if you're doing on the phone or Zoom or whatever, that you say, hey, I want to run my recorder so I can go back and check and make sure I'm getting things accurate. Is that okay with you? And most of them are like, yeah, who cares? No big deal. So use your judgment on that. And last thing I want to do is, remember we were talking about Alex, who was super frustrated in his business and he couldn't figure out what the heck was going on and why things weren't seeming to go the right way. Well, let's just see what happened. So Alex got more and more frustration, and the lack of customer love was taking its toll on his business, and he felt helpless and overwhelmed. He was just super frustrated. He got some negative reviews that were coming in, and that tarnished his reputation, and it was driving away some potential customers. Well, and again, he started questioning his whole ability. Then he stumbled on that content piece that spoke directly to his situation. It's almost like going through the forest and finding a guide that can give you those tips and tidbits or take you by the hand and walk you down the path that you need to know to go on. Anyway, Alex found a resource that had practical steps and insights on how to infuse customer love into his business. So he was intrigued and desperate to change his business. So he dug into that and absorbed every word and implemented the suggested strategies and turned his business around, started getting referrals, felt confident, and if nothing else, he had a plan. I think we all feel more confident when we have a plan and we can work our plan. So that's what Alex did. All right, we're at wrap-up time. These are just ideas. Think about what we've gone over here today. Set an action plan. Review your notes. Do you have one thing that's stuck out today? I would say before you jump into the next thing on your list of things to do today, go back over your notes, highlight, was there one thing? Because again, as I said, many of these things show up multiple times. And so there's repetition and you go, yeah, got it. Okay, heard that 3 times. All right, I'm on it. And sometimes we just need to hear things a little bit differently. So do you have one thing that you're going to do? And think about, what is your action plan? Maybe you have more than one thing. See what you can come up with and add that to your plan. So I suggest you take about 5 minutes a day anyway, and just look at, what is that one action item? What did you get? What are you working on this week? Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about getting customers to love you. And maybe then in the meantime, if there's some questions that come up, put them in the Facebook group and we can address those in the next session as well, because everything here that we covered is probably pretty intuitive. Might be things that you've heard a gazillion times, might be a couple new twists on it. If you've got some questions, let me know or put them in the group. I think that we're at a wrap because we're at 10:03. Thanks for being here. Like I said, let me know if you have questions, put them in the Facebook group or send me an email, and we will see you next week. Thanks a lot.